Hello, my name's Colin Curtin and I'm the developer of QualCoder, the open source and free to use qualitative data analysis software. So today's video, I'm going to give a bit of a summary of the features and things that you can do with QualCoder. Okay, so particularly if you're on Windows, it's easiest to use the exe, although you can download and do a manual install of the program code itself. When you first start running QualCoder, it will take up to 10 seconds to get started because it has to unpack all the compressed files that are stored inside the exe first. So I've got it up and running here already. And this fairly simple and basic screen is presented. And there's various tabs to flick through different things that you're doing. So there's a log of events, managing files and cases, a coding section and a report section. When you open up the action log, it'll show you what version you're using. It'll search and find the latest versions that are available. And we've got some basic settings here. So in the project menu options, we can create a new project, open an existing project, close a project, add a project memo, change the settings, and print a project summary. We can import projects from, or import codebook information or project information from another source if it's been exported in this REFI export option. And you can import the older RQDA projects. You can also import plain text code lists as well. When you're using REFI QDA project import and export, you've got to be aware that each software is different. So QualCoder is one of many qualitative data analysis software. And the way each lot of software deals with and works with the data can be a little different. So importing once or exporting once to another software that deals with QDA is okay. But if you're trying to multiply swap forward and back between projects, you're going to find that your data is going to be either lost or changed in some way because each of the software that deals with this information may not store in the right format the information that's come out from trying to import the REFI QDA project. So that's something to be aware of. Also with QualCoder, I'm not going to 100% commit to saying that all project importations are going to work accurately. While I've done a bit of testing to improve it, there might still be some glitches that might not import this format always well. Similarly, you can export projects in this same format. You can export code books as a plain ODT file, which can be opened with LibreOffice or Word. And you can export the same thing with memos as well. So we'll start by creating a new project. We'll have a look at settings, just so that you're aware of what options are available. So you can type in a different coder name. There might be ones existing in the project, so you might want to swap between coders, or you might type in a new coder name, maybe the coder. We apply that name to make use with it. There are options for the entire program. We've got English and several other options here. Not everything's translated and not everything is translated well, but it may help some people who are working in other languages to use the interface with some words that they're familiar with. Font sizes can be changed throughout the program. When you're writing, getting text reports, you might want to have text context, which means the text before and after the bit of coding that you've done, you want to have that displayed as well. So there's options with how many characters and what style you would like that to be. Usually QualCoder will back up every hour. So I've limited it to store 2 backups at a time, but there's options for different numbers. You can switch backups off completely. And if you're working with a lot of audio and video files, backups can be quite slow. So there's an option to switch that off as well. You can change where the default project directory for where QualCoder is looking for information, but I don't need to do that now. Show IDs. This shows the behind the scenes information that's stored in the database. Data is stored in a SQLite database, and each entry usually has a number assigned to a unique entry in a unique table for whatever information is being stored. And this is an option to show that information in more detail. The style, this is the original style. There are several other options for really large text documents, and you'll find that mouse hover is important for highlighting lots of things. For really large text documents, when you're doing coding, the coding window can be very slow. So several options are here. Firstly, if you're importing a really large book, for example, you might want to split it into separate files of separate chapters so that the amount of text that's being displayed and shown when you're doing your coding is a little bit smaller. And the other thing you can do is that when you do have a really large text file and it looks slow, you can chunk it into 50,000 character sizes or smaller sizes to improve the speed of how QualCoder works with those large amounts of text. Now, if you're doing transcribing audio or video, there's some shorthand buttons during the transcription process, and we have standard formats for how these information can be displayed. Time formats are listed there, and two different speaker formats with the speaker name in the middle. And start the project, so we'll create a new project. We'll call it test. And this is stored here. It's basically a folder containing other information. Data QDA is the SQLite file. The other folders need to be present, and they store whatever information we decide to put into it. Video, images, and audio are important because QualCoder needs to locate where the original document is to make use of it. It does import text documents into the documents folder, but it doesn't use those text documents directly. It imports the text from those documents into the SQLite database here. And that's what it works on there. So to get started with data, we need to manage our files. There are no files here for us to code, so we need to import some. So we'll look at our examples, and we'll import a couple of text and open document format, maybe the couple of pictures. And so they're loaded up here. So the formatting of the text will be lost, but the text itself will be retained. Is that it's probably good to go through the text now before you start coding to fix any spelling mistakes and other issues that need to be fixed there. It's much easier to do that beforehand than after you've already coded sections of text. Once the sections of text are coded and then you edit these documents, there is a small risk that the positions of the codings might not correctly adjust. So that's one image. You can move the image area around and resize as needed. And we can add a memo to the image here or in the other section as well. We can link to a file that's outside the project without importing it into the project folder. So we might link to this EPUB document. We can create a new file and add some text to that. Sometimes that's useful if you want to copy text from another source and just plonk it into this type of thing. We can import a linked file into the project folder. So that one there, for example, export a file from the project file as a linked file, so QualCoder can still link to it if needed. It really only needs to link to audio, video, and image files. The text, it doesn't matter so much because it's going to import the plain text into the database for it to use. We can add attributes, which are variables, so source of information, perhaps. And maybe the source of information was a focus group. Modify what you see. So you can right-click on a header row to hide columns. So right-click, I'm going to hide the date and time column. I can right-click on any of these squares, cells, to do various things. We can view the file, view the original text file if we need to, change the order. We can show values like, so something with a P in it. Just shows all the file names with a P in it. We can rename the entry. It doesn't rename the original file, just the database entry. We can export the file, we can delete the file. And similarly with the buttons up the top, we can move to an externally linked file. We can show all rows. We might only want to see particular files, maybe just the focus group files. Show values like this value. And if you've got lots of files, this is a quicker way to work through what you've got. Cases are a collection of files assigned to one source. So perhaps, let's say we create a new case. Maybe the case is the president. So we can add a memo. Currently there's no files linked, so we right click or left click, and we can assign some of these files to that particular case. So maybe those two files there can be selected to this, assigned to this case. Okay. Now here we can right click. We can view what's assigned to this case. So we've got a temporary file with the text without and the image as well. I think we right click to open and view that if you want. What can we do here? We can manage journals. So we can create a journal. We can type in our first journal entry. And we can highlight sections in the journal by using markdown. So a hash is a heading 1, a double hash is a heading 2 style, triple hash is heading 3 style. We can also highlight words by using a star for italics or a double star for bold. We can search through one journal or all journals, depending whether you tick that box, for a particular word. Maybe we want to get entry. And one option has been found there, one word matching that selection. So we move forward to find that. So that can be useful. We can delete our journal entries. We can open a web page to show details of, there we go. So there's a wiki for QualCoder, and a lot of information is stored here. And those question marks will just go to the section that is relevant to what you're looking at the time. What else? We can export the journal as a plain text file. We can export all the journals that are listed as a single file. We can add attributes like we did with the files earlier. Just that it helps to sort through information there. We can have references from a database of some sort or other. So these are in our IS format. And I've got an example in the examples folder here. So to import that, we click on the import function. And they're listed there. And we can assign the reference to some text that we've got. So we can import a survey. So at the moment, it imports each row as a case, and the various components within the survey can be stored as files for qualitative analysis. So you can import from a CSV file or from an Excel file. So I'll do Excel. It looks at the information and makes determinations about what the information is. The first row must have a heading row, as is shown here. The first column of the Excel must have, for each case, a unique number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. And it's going to use that to give it case names. We've got attributes, so it's determined that this is a number, this is a character, etc. And this last column here, it assumes it's character, but we want to turn that into a qualitative data set. So each free text survey response can be designated to a qualitative format. And what this does is it will store all this information into a separate file with one row per person and the unique case identifier being linked to that row. In the future, I'll have an option where each individual response can be imported separately in a separate file. I'll just see how this goes. So I've got the 3 case numbers. They're all stored within the same one file, and the various attributes for each case are listed there. And there was something here I had to fix. Oh yes, there we go, that worked there. Right, so to view the case, right click on the case you're interested in, click on view case. These are all stored within the same file called free text file with the date. So if we go back to manage files, there's one file, and that file contains the case responses for each of those cases in the survey. We've done journals, we'll have a look at attributes. So these are the various attributes that are stored within QualCoder, and you can add new attributes, you can delete attributes. Once you've got bibliographic information in there, you really shouldn't be able to delete it. But these other ones you can. And you can add more, whether it's it can be in character or numeric format, and it can be assigned to cases, files, or journals. And we'll go to the coding menu and go code text. The bars can be moved around, make the window a bit smaller. There we go. Now the first thing is we read through our text and we identify codes of interest. Perhaps the liking learning is a code of interest, so we can right click in this section and add a new code. I'll call that like learning. Highlight that and click on the code. What else is there about liking learning. Maybe this is about liking learning. Now we can use shorthand, so we can mark the Q or use the menu here to mark it Q with our currently highlighted code. There's costs involved here, so we'll add a new code about course costs, perhaps. Each code comes with a default random color, and this can be changed with the code color options here. We can also see how the codes will appear to people with different color vision. Most are doing well, so maybe they like learning as well. So now we've got two codes on the same section of text, and you can see that highlighting the mouse shows the details of both the codes, and pressing O, if you click in that spot and press O, it will cycle through the overlapping bits of text. So that is a start. Another thing we might want to do is add a new category. We'll call this learning. And maybe under the learning category, we'll put our learning related concepts. Course costs might be under another category. As you can see, they can be expanded and hidden like that. We might want to search for text. Maybe the word "the" is present here. It's present 9 times. So we can cycle through all the "the" words there. You can cycle through multiple documents. So looking through all our text documents, there's 3,000 odd "the" words, or "the" is a component of a word. We can specify with this one case sensitivity. We can edit text here, but as I've suggested before, it's best to edit text before you start coding. But I'll just give you an example of how this works. So the screen changes when we click on edit text, and maybe that was meant to be not theirs, but there is. So that can be changed. And then we can edit this screen and apply that change. We can annotate selections of text. These aren't used for coding, but maybe you want to annotate a concept you're not familiar with. So the annotation for computer savvy is people who are familiar with computers. Annotations are highlighted, and mousing over will give you the details of the annotation. So we can show annotations. We can memo coded sections. For example, I like learning new things. That top first coding, we can memo it through using this button here, or we can memo it by right-clicking and choosing memo coded text, or pressing M here. Memoed sections will be italicized, and mousing over will give you some details there as well. Similarly, you can show all the memos within the text. Depending on how you wish to view your text, you can resize it here, and you can auto code with exact text. So I've given it or auto code a text fragment to sentences in this file, and similarly you can do this across all files. So an example with exact text coding, we'll add a new code. These, and we'll just give that a bit of a a brighter colour. So in this document, okay, we'll select our code. We'll highlight every "the" that is in the text, or code it. In this file, we can do it across multiple files. Hopefully I've selected that file, and this is ID1, so we'll try that again. And all those words are coded. So we can also change the positioning of the coding. So just to show you, change code key presses, change the end position, shrink by pressing Alt left. So we'll click on the code we want, Alt left, just move that out of the way a bit. And you can see how that code is shrinking down. And some people wanted to have the option to delete codes from a file. So there's an option here to delete all codes by this coder, who's named the coder, from this file. What else can we do? So if you have a lot of files, you can right click, you can open file memos and go to the next file in the list. You can also go and use this to go to the next file in the list. You can go to the file with the latest coding. You can bookmark a section and then go to the bookmark. So let's go to here and I'll add a bookmark. Let's go to another file, click down there somewhere. I go to the bookmark and it goes to that selected position. And we can show files of file attributes. Just so that I haven't detailed anything, but if you have a reference assigned to particular files or a journal or some other concept, you can restrict the file list that is displayed based on those attributes. And you can also show files like with a particular word. Maybe you only want to show files that have ID in them. So if you've got, now with the codes, it's similar. So there's the memo there, and you just mouse over. It should give you the text of the memo. What else? If we right-click, we can rename codes. View and edit the memos. We can delete the codes. We can show codes like. So if we have too many codes displayed in our code tree, we can just trim that back, and maybe we just want to show codes with the word learning correctly spelled. So that can be useful sometimes. To get out of that, we just show a blank set of codes or all codes. Another thing we can do is, actually I'm just going to add an extra bit of coding here. Another thing we can do here is to look through specific codes. So I've got the sentence coding highlighted in this text document. Maybe we just want to look at that. And it will just cycle through one by one each of the coded sections, just showing that particular code. This will show all codings. This is a function that shows codings flagged important. So maybe this code about the structured content is really important, so we'll add an important mark. Because there's multiple codes in this spot, we have to pick which one we want. So now if we just want to have a look at important codes, click on that button there, and that's all that's shown. Okay, I think that's most of the functions here. Another thing we can do is, let's see, let's look at these. We right click on that and we show coded files. You've got to display where the file details and where the coding occurs is shown. We can also add more codes to particular segments and remove codes. and thing. We can move codes through here, so we can physically move codes by dragging and dropping, or we can move it to another spot using the right-click menu. Similarly with categories, we can move them and shuffle them around by putting them underneath another category or pulling that out. We can import a plain text codes list, which I'll show you now. So I've got a plain text document, and it's set up in this structure. The first word is the code, then there's a tab, and then some text with a memo for the code. If you want to import codes and categories, start with the category name first, then two greater than signs, and then the code, or two greater than signs, category, greater than signs, code. So project, we go import, plain text code list, go to our examples and select that. We'll have to refresh this. And those new categories and codes and their memos are imported. So for now, we'll go to code image. Just pull that across a bit. And in here, we've got a couple of images. We'll stick with the classroom image. Now let's say, I'll move that up a bit. Perhaps like learning, perhaps viewing these screens is a case of liking learning. That's now highlighted, which drag and drop the code across the image. Problems with learning. The students have problems with learning. We can right click and memo. If we have an important code, maybe this is an important one. We can just show only the important coded segments. We have details here about scale and rotation. We can export the coded image if we need to. And we can rotate the image. Let's make that a bit smaller. Right, so they should be imported shortly. Sometimes takes a little while. Just wait for it to do its thing. There we go. So the text of the document is there. So we go to code PDF. There are some warnings about doing this, and mainly displaying images within the PDF is not ideal. And older versions of QualCoder won't work so well either with this this capacity. You can code the PDF text here in the same way that we coded the text beforehand, and that's usually enough for a lot of people. But some people like to see the PDF in the context of how it was originally set out. I'll just give that a moment to do its thing. That should load up on the screen. Right, so as you say, this is, as you can see, this is not an ideal representation of the original PDF, but it's trying to be. So it's roughly in the right positioning for the text. It doesn't use the original text. It sort of recreates it in its own way. It's we can go through page by page. Text is overlapping, so what we can do is we can change the text size. If I make it -3, it'll reduce the overlap. And so on throughout the text document. There'll be images that won't load very well. although in this case these ones have loaded all right. The text on the side is here as well. It sort of matches. Now perhaps we want to highlight some of this here. So when PDFs are created, text is done in sections. As you can see, when I move the mouse over, there's text blocks, and we can mark and assign those. They should be similarly represented in the plain text on the side here. Also, we can select plain text on the side and code that there. So this is another way to do coding. The main reason to use PDFs such as this is that you can see the text in context of how it looks in the original PDF. Coding audio and video data is done through another option here called Code Audio Video. And when the screen loads up, you have a whole pile of controls at the top, your list of files on the left-hand side there, and underneath your code tree that you've used. If the audio video is transcribed, there'll be a transcription matching it on this side as well. So we've got options to play. I'll turn that off a bit louder. We can go forward or back by several seconds. We've got a time stamp and how long the time is of the audio video file. We've got options to slow or increase the playback speed of the audio or video. With some audio and video files, and this is rare, they might have multiple audio tracks to the file, so you can change between those here. You can also, if it's time stamped, like this one is, you can also scroll the transcript while playing, and so the text will scroll up as it goes through the video. Oops. With the XE, there's a problem with the XE and we can't play back these at the moment. If you have the manual installed version of this, you can. But you can also, in the next version, I'm going to give extra options to work around that for the XE. But at the moment, if you want to code a segment of audio video, you get to the spot where you want to be, and you can click on Start Segment. You can play. And then continue until the end of the segment that you want to code. So then we click End Segment. Pause the video. And we can assign that segment to a code in our code tree. Right click, Assign Segment to Code. So that segment is now assigned to that bit of coding. So with the XE, there's a problem with the right click functions here, with the manual install or on Linux. And with the next version, I'm going to add in extra coding to sort this out. You can right click to play back the segment, add a memo to the segment, and to edit the start and end positions and to delete the segment. What you're going to use is called coding reports. I might just go back to this and get rid of those extra windows. Right, so in coding reports, I'll make the screen a bit bigger. We can select a file or multiple files of interest, which are highlighted with the red bar, or control click to add some extra ones, or right click to select all files or all files with particular text within them. For the moment, I'll just select a whole pile there. We can select some or all codes. I'll select abilities and opinions. And so this is a basic selection of a few files, few codes, and then we run using the play button, run the report. So it displays the report parameters at the top, and underneath each coded segment. This one here is an audio video code. If you right click on it, you can view in context. Similarly, you can view all these other text segments in context of the original text from where it came. We can actually add further text context. So if I rerun this file, the coded text is highlighted in bold, and the preceding and post-ceding text is shown as well. So this could be of use to you. We could add statistics, which are basic summary statistics, which are included within the parameters section at the top, code counts, file percentages, etc. We might choose only to show the important coded segments of text and videos and images. So these are the ones that have been marked important, and that's all that will show. We've got some other options. For these options here, we could have memo reporting options. So if you've got memos to codes, to the coded segments, etc., or to annotations or codebook memos, you can add these in within the report. You can also have text limiters, so maybe you only want coded text which contains the word "the." We can limit by coder, and we can also get a transpositional matrix where we can have codes or categories by file or by case. So let's select a fair bit of stuff, and we'll do top categories by file, and we'll run the report. So it splits into 3 screens, which you can shuffle around using these bars. And the third screen here is the matrix, which can be transposed. So these headings can be here, and these headings can be across the top if you tick that little tick box. Essentially, these are the large top-level categories, and all the coded components are located within each of those boxes there. So we'll export this to an HTML file. I'll call it report1. Save this. Now when we look at this report, we'll have the main HTML file and a supplementary file that goes with it. So if you open up the report, it'll open up in a web browser, and it's replicated in the web browser. A couple of things there haven't quite worked out well, but there's also the audio and video, which is displayed here as well. So we can do coding comparisons between coders. So I'll select Colin and default. I think they're the ones that are used the most. We'll run the comparison report, and you can see where there's similarities and differences with a Kappa score for each of the codes and categories listed there. We can do the same thing, but by file. We can look at code frequencies. So the coder name, how many times they coded a specific concept, and so on. These are also can be by alphabet or by totals. And you can export those as Excel or a text file. You can also limit it to a specific file if you want to. So we can do a file summary. So if we select a file, not much in that file, but it gives you details of the file, its attributes, and a few other bits and pieces. The second file has got a bit more assigned to it. It's got a number of unique words and words in the file, top 100 words, and code counts down the bottom. Code summary. So we've got our counts and so on. So struggling, that has got 9 uses. So we'll have a look at that one. And the details of that code are described on the other side here. So what files it's been assigned in, the frequency of codings, the words and words used for those codings, and if it was in image or AV codings, there'd be details there as well. So view graph is a way to view our code tree and information relating to our code tree. So we've got these various isolated codes. We've got codes within categories. This can be shuffled around. And we can add a lot of extra information. So we can add a free text item. So a heading maybe. We can right click and modify these. We can make it bold, larger font, etc. Or colored. We can add in case items or file items. So that should have added in somewhere. That might be of interest to you if you need to do that. You can show the attributes if you want of the case. Add file items. So maybe we add that file, an image file perhaps. And that's the image there, which you can put onto different colored backgrounds because it's like a transparent background. Charts are another option. So particularly if you want to count the characters or the number of codes in our project. Okay, so you can develop a few charts from your coding. Say code frequency chart, such as a pie chart. You can do a similar thing as a bar chart. Because you've got a hierarchy of codes and categories, you could do a hierarchy chart, such as a sunburst or a tree map. Example of that there. You can do a heat map chart. So we'll just restrict this to a smaller number of codes. And we'll do it by file. And the brighter colors indicate more codings and the darker colors fewer codings by file and code. We can do character attributes and numeric attributes as summary bar charts. There are various filters you can apply. For example, if you're doing a pie chart for count of codes, you might have many codes, and just to show some codes, you might filter out values below counts of 20 codes or so. You can also do word clouds, so you can have a black background, select everything, and various foreground options, including some shades, for example, blue to yellow. N-grams means single words are displayed, or word pairs, word triplets, or word quadruplets. So if we make a word cloud out of these options, saves word cloud as a PNG file, and this is an example there. So I think that's covered the main features of QualCoder, and I hope you find it useful in your work. Thank you.